your interns' exercises, or simply to trade trap deltas as a scalper. Trap deltas is one of the most powerful short-term plays you can ever get, and sometimes it swings. Sometimes it really does swing when you get a trap delta. You've got to have a process for finding the deal. You've got to have a process for being able to recognize the opportunity. If you don't have a process, then of course there's challenges. There's massive challenges, isn't there? So let me just so when you're looking at trap deltas, the key to any trade in a trap delta is that you're going to play it as a short-term play. That's all it ever can be, because you're not using anything else. You're simply using a tape. You're simply trading like, for example, you're trading like Charlie D on any transition you see. You're not knowing why there's a transition, because all you're doing is trading a transition, but you know it's there. And that's an incredibly powerful piece of information when you see that transition. And whether you use big blocks or whether you use Voltics to get that transition is your choice. But if you look for transitions, they should have a standard setup. You can see that there was a sell here, but there was no transition. The book was offered, the delta was offered, so this isn't something you'd look at and say, well, there's a guaranteed trade opportunity for me. And there's nothing there for you. You let it go, you let it go, you let it go. As you go forward, you start to recognize when the transition takes place. There was no transition into the top edges here. You got exhaustion, which you might have been able to take advantage of up here. The delta was bearish, the book was bearish, so that's a fresh air sell off the 10.4 there on oil, on gold. And obviously 10.4 in gold traded 8.4. That little sell there in 2 or 3 minutes was worth $200, which is pretty good. So when you see these types of trades, you can see there's a heavy sell side delta here. The book's bullish, so you're looking for a red block in here, which never happened. Okay, so you pass on it. There's nothing there for you because it's not there. If it's not there, you can't see it. If you can't see it, it's not in your charts. You're not going to trade it. So when you start working your way through these processes, all you're looking for is that benchmark setup. You can see we've had a couple of transitions in here. There could have been a nice transition there, but there wasn't. So there's no trade, was there? There was simply no trade. There's no trade up here. So you're watching these things. Now, there was a little possible transition there with a Voltic, 14.4. It traded 14 evens. If you sold that at 14.3, stops are at break even after 3 ticks. Remember, it's a scalp, so that's okay. You can accept that. It's not the best one. I mean, I'd like to trade something a little bit better than that. And there's one right there. There is a perfect example of what you're looking for. A massive sell delta, which is balanced by a very aggressive bid stacking on the book. What a way to make a living, right? So obviously you can see where the POC is on that candle there, 14.7. You put in a bid at 14.8, 14.9. By the time that candle closes at 15.1. Does it do well? Well, it trades a high price of 15.5. It makes $60 maximum. And then it stops you out at break even +1. Remember, you're a scalper on these. You're not knowing whether you should be buying or selling that transition. All you know is it's there. It's going to probably make money as a transition trade on its own. These transitions can be golden. So you just work your way through these transitions. You can do literally a whole entire trading career based on transition trading. If you decide that it's something that you fancy, if you decide it's something that you like, then of course, well, good, trade it. That exhaustion at the bottom edge, we got the sweep on bonds. I did put the buy trade in. And did anybody else play it? As called in the room. We bought on the bond sweep lower. And we got in at 14s. It's just traded 23s. And you can't really ask for that. We never even actually got a transition there. That was the interesting thing. We didn't get a transition. We simply got sell side exhaustion by those deltas. Still worked out to be a brilliant trade, didn't it? Look at that. What a great little trade. Called in the room in advance. Crazy like a Sunday morning. So there's a little screenshot. We told you what we were expecting. We said that we would like to see it sweeping the 16s. So there was the 16s there. We wanted to see it sweeping the 16s stops because of what reason? Well, because of this amazingly large buy side delta that started to show up in here. Because there was so many buyers in there, we felt that they were definitely going to run the sweep to try and eliminate an awful lot of that buyer. Well, they were successful, weren't they? Because look at what happened. Look at the delta there. You see that see the buyer getting eliminated? Well, that's the buyer getting eliminated right there, isn't it? That's the story of the delta. That's the story of the tape. The buyer got absolutely eliminated there, which gave you the opportunity to start bidding into this at 13s, 14s. And obviously the takeaway from that bid up to 24s was relatively straightforward. Perfect. Well done. Interesting that equities didn't have any book response to cash open. Book's been relatively fair. I think the only thing that you saw coming into the cash open was a little bit of bearish book coming into the top line. And then there was a tiny little transition at the bottom edge there for the buyers to come back in on the S&P. So there's a transition at the bottom edge. You see that heavy selling delta that got absorbed by the book, and then they transitioned it straight into a buy trade for the sweep. So you can see that they had, similar to the top edge here, that was the sell into the top edge of the cash open. So they had a nice sell transition up here. So there's a lot of opportunity to lean up there. And then the next transition was this buyer down here. And you would have been able to perhaps pick up a little buy reversal from that trapped seller. And you can see a reasonable buy back up to the same price we had the sellers from.